بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم الحمد لله رب العالمين صلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين اللهم أخرجني من ظلمات الوهم وأكرمني بنور الفهم اللهم افتح علينا أبواب رحمتك وانشر علينا خزائن علومك برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. We start chapter 7, which is about Al-Urf was-Sira. Urf means public opinion. Public opinion can be in one society, can be in a country, can be in the world, can be among, for example, religious people. We say urf mutasharra'a. Mutasharra'a means religious people. For example, sometimes among doctors there might be a special public opinion which is not among other people. Among builders, for example, among engineers, there can be different urf am, urf khas, sometimes it's general, sometimes it's specific, sometimes it's for all human beings, sometimes for religious people. So urf means like public opinion, like common sense. And sira means conduct. As-sira means conduct. Practice, common practice, conduct. Okay, this discussion is about where we can refer to urf in religious matters. And this is different from aql. Aql is when you have a proof, a rational argument to prove something. That's different. This is urf. إن العرف له دور في مجال الاستنباط. Truly, urf, public opinion, has a role in istinbat. Istinbat means to infer or to draw out of the sources Islamic rulings. أولا وفي فصل الخصومات ثانيا. Secondly, in settling debates and quarrels, خصومات means there are debates or conflicts in interests, or for example, people take each other to the court, to the judge, and he wants to settle this debate, this problem. حتى قيل في حقه, to the extent that it has been said about urf, العادة شريعة محكمة. Some people have said, of course, understand that this is okay. Unless there is taqiyya. That's another issue. So there are many things that you have to establish, yes.
I was thinking so the muhaddathat, because the second condition is not applied, so what's going to happen to it?
To what?
Muhaddathat, the things as you said about the tobacco, is no.
So you cannot use
yes.
orf
Then we have to.
for this type of thing.
Okay.
But inshallah we'll talk about other things. So, توضيحه, further explanation. إن السيرة على قسمين. Sira has two types. تارة تصادم الكتاب والسنة وتعارضهما. After two lines. وأخرى لا تصادم. Sometimes Sira conflicts the Quran and Sunnah. وتعارض means clashes, conflicts. كاختلاط النساء بالرجال في الأفراح والأعراس. Mixing of men and women in wedding and celebrations. وشرب المسكرات فيها. Drinking intoxications in these weddings and celebrations. والمعاملات الربوية. Transactions which are involving riba. Okay? So, لا شك أن هذه السيرة باطلة. This sira is not something that you can use as a basis for اجتهاد and استنباط الحكم. لا يرتضيها الإسلام. Islam would not be pleased with this type of sira. ولا يحتج بها إلا الجاهل. No one would argue from this except the one who is ignorant. So, if there is such a sira, it has no validity and cannot be used as an evidence for understanding Islamic rulings. أخرى, sometimes, no, there is no problem. So the first condition is met. The sira doesn't conflict anything known to be Islamic. Okay? Doesn't conflict anything known to be Islamic. So the first problem is not there. But still we don't know what is the opinion of Islam about it. If it was in the time of Ma'asum, or from now till the time of Ma'asum was connected, either existed at that time, or it's from now till then connected, we can use it, otherwise no. أخرى لا تصادم الدليل الشرعي وفي الوقت نفسه لا يدعمها الدليل. It does not conflict with religious ruling, but also there is nothing to support this. We don't know whether it is acceptable or not. هذا النوع من السيرة. Siyar is plural for sira. This type of conducts, common practices, إن اتصلت بزمان المعصوم. If you can establish that this is not something new, this is something that existed even in the time of Ma'asum. But in the time of Ma'asum, where? Any part of the world? No. Where Ma'asum was watching and hearing, so that we can say if he didn't protest, he accepted it.
Just his approval.
So, اتصلت بزمان المعصوم وكانت بمرأ ومسمع منه. And this was in a mar'a means a place for watching, for seeing. Masma' means a place for hearing. Mar'an wa masma'in minhu means a place that Ma'asum was able to see and watch. Mar'a, masma' means to hear. Okay? So this is the meaning of being connected and being valid. وَمَعَ ذَلِكَ سَكَتَ عَنْهَا. And still, Ma'soom didn't protest, kept silent. This means taqreer of Ma'soom is there. If this is the case, تكون حجة على الأجيال القادمة. That jil means that generation, jil means generation, that was in the time of Ma'soom, okay, they have no problem because they know the opinion of Ma'soom. Other generations also can use this to say that this must be okay.
Jail was what?
Jil, generation. For example, العقود المعاطاتية من البيع والإيجار. Do you know معاطات? معاطات is something that is used in fiqh in the sense of simply giving and taking without saying the religious formula, without uttering al-aqd. For example, very often when we buy or sell, we don't say bi'tu or the other person will say ishtaraitu.
Yeah, he just pay and he get it.
Yeah, we give and this is called bay' mu'atati. Means just we give and take without saying the formula.
It's like Ju'ala.
No.
No, we bonding to
No,
the
no.
contract.
Ju'ala is a type of mu'amala, but any mu'amala that needs sigha, if you don't say it and just do it,
أو بدون صيغة.
like for example, for ijara, for renting a house, many times we don't say, for example, the religious formula for ijab and qabul. Today, almost nowhere we use, unfortunately, these things, except maybe for marriage. For marriage, there is ijab and qabul clearly said. So, if we can establish that even in the time of Ma'soom, when people were buying and selling, they were doing bay' mu'atati, means just giving the money and taking the good, we can say that, okay, that was something that Ma'soom didn't stop, so it should be valid for us also today. Okay, if you can establish that. Or وقف الأشجار والأبنية من دون وقف الإقار. Is it possible that for example, I have a land on which there are walnut trees. Walnut tree is very valuable. Why? Because the walnut is expensive, the wood is expensive. So sometimes people make waqf, as endowment of the trees. Can someone make waqf of trees without making waqf the land? Or for example, you have 1 acre land, but there is a building. Can you make waqf of building without land? Or it has to be with land? So here, someone may say, we know that in the time of Ma'soom, it was common to make waqf of trees or construction without land. And Ma'soom didn't stop that. So it means that it's okay. Okay? But of course, then to go and get access to that building or that tree, you need permission. You have to arrange it in the way that would not annoy also that person. But that person also should give you permission, reasonable permission. And there is, a story of a person that I think was, if I'm not mistaken, was Samarat ibn Jundab, if I'm not mistaken, who had a tree in someone's house in the time of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he was not getting permission for going to his tree. And the owner of that place was annoyed because he has his family. And he goes, without permission. So he went to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and complained, and Rasulullah told Samara, you should, not annoy your brother, And he said, this owner, he said, this is my tree, and Rasulullah said, for example, I give you a tree instead of this, promise a tree in heaven. He said, no, I want this tree. Then Rasulullah told the owner, you can remove the tree and give it to him. And then he said, La dharara wa la dhirara fil Islam, which became the basis of this famous rule of la dharar. In Islam, there is no harm and no harming. You cannot harm other people. Okay? So you have right to use your tree, but you cannot misuse this right and harm other people. And fuqaha then have lots of discussion about this, hundreds of pages on this rule. La dharara wa la dhirara fil Islam. So it's possible that a person has a tree but doesn't own the land. That was in that time. وبذلك يعلم أن السير الحادثة بين المسلمين بعد الرحيل المعصوم أو غيبته لا يصح الاحتجاج بها. So now we realize that if this sirah has been established after the demise of the ma'soom or after the time of ghaiba started, so you cannot use this sirah to discover the opinion of ma'soom. There is no taqreer. This sirah has no value. Okay? He gives some examples. Aqdu ta'min, insurance. Insurance is a type of deal that is very common today, but we don't have such thing in the time of Ma'soom. So you cannot say because today people use insurance, so Islamically this is okay. Because this is not done in the time of Ma'soom. We don't say it's wrong, but we are saying that this reason is not working here. You have to find another way to establish whether this is valid or not. But you cannot use sirah. You cannot use orf mutasharrih. Okay? هو عقد رائج بين العقلاء. This is a kind of act, a kind of transaction, a kind of deal which is very common among rational people. And today's life is depending on this. Today without insurance it's very difficult. Of course it is possible, but it's difficult. But موافقة العرف له ليست دليلا على مشروعيته. But the fact that public opinion is agreeing doesn't mean that this is religiously legitimate. We are not saying it's not legitimate. We are saying this is not the reason. You can find another reason. Is it clear? We are not saying it's not religiously legitimate. We say we cannot use urf to legitimize this. يجب التماس دليل آخر عليه. We should seek another reason. Second, عقد حق الامتياز. No, like a kind of subscription. For example,
like bills.
Like
Bills.
yeah, in here is not like this. But for example, in Iran, when you build a house and you want to get electricity, okay, you pay one of amount to get this kind of subscription or a kind of license. Maybe today, for example, maybe here is, for example, for cap. If you want to have a cap, black cap, you have haqqul imtiyaz. There is a lump sum money that you pay once, and then after that you pay monthly or quarterly something, depending on the contract. But that money that you give first to get the permission to use that facility, they charge you for that, but that amount that you give in the beginning to subscribe, a kind of license that you...
Can we use it for TV license as well? TV license?
No, TV license is different.
It's a fee. Instead of buying a right, maybe you're buying a right.
Yeah, you're buying a right for using something that is something that didn't exist at that time.
Car insurance.
Pardon?
Car insurance.
Like insurance. It's different from insurance. In that time, for example, you needed water, you were buying water. You needed electricity, there was no electricity. Life was very simple. Okay, anything you wanted, you go and buy it. But now you have to subscribe. And sometimes you have to pay something for buying the right or license. We cannot say this must be also something that is accepted in Islam because people are doing this. This conduct of people is not known to be existing in time of Ma'soom. Or maybe we know that didn't exist. We don't say this is wrong. We are saying just this is not the way to understand Islamic opinion. You should use other reasons. Yes.
Would the congestion charge apply here? Need to pay a fee to enter.
Yeah.
Congestion charge is like a kind of,
Entering is like a tool.
for sure this didn't exist anyway. But then we have to find another, we have to say whether it is a kind of tax, whether it's a kind of subscription for a service that you receive, whether it's a kind of penalty. So you have to analyze. So عقد حق الامتياز قد شاع بين الناس, it has become popular. شراء الامتيازات, buying like privilege. كامتياز الكهرباء والهاتف والماء. You buy the right for electricity, for telephone. You know, when first mobile started in Iran, so for getting SIM card, it was about 1 million to month.
Yes. Yeah.
Just get the SIM card. And at that time, 1 million to month was like $1,000, something like this, to get it. But then you pay for using it. But to get that in the first place was expensive. Then they made, you know.
I think it's still 400,000.
Pardon?
It's still 400,000 for the SIM if you want to have
For some of,
it.
yeah. But then now you have a,
The valuation of that thing.
now is almost free.
They started here.
Depending, but some people say we want this prefix. That prefix is more expensive, you know. Anyway, it was like this. You had,
Here as well.
pardon?
When they started here, they used to charge on the SIM.
Yeah.
But aren't you buying the SIM card or not?
Pardon?
In this case, are you buying the SIM card or is this like a couple of years here?
Are you buying something?
It's not just for SIM card because you could lose the SIM card and get another SIM card. But
You buy the number.
that's the license, that's the right. Okay, for water, التي تعد من متطلبات الحياة العصرية. In this age, this is one of the requirements of life. You need to have these licenses, these rights. You pay حصة من المال بغية شرائها وراء ما يدفع في كل حين عند الاستفادة والانتفاع. So you give some money for buying this right And then this is in addition to the money that you pay for using. Why this cannot be used? Because this is new. هذه السيرة استحدثت ولم تكن من قبل. This is a new thing. فلا تكون دليلا على جوازها. You cannot say this is right, permissible, because people are doing. We know that this is not connected to the time of Ma'asum. فلا بد من طلب دليل آخر. You should find another reason for it. بيع السرقفلية. It's a Farsi term which has entered Arabic.
I think it's a license selling because when you buy a shop here,
Like a lease.
yeah, lease.
It's a kind of lease, yeah? So, sometimes someone has a shop, okay? The owner then sells the right of using this to a person, maybe permanently. Then the value of the shop is not that much, but the value of sarqufli can be very expensive. And maybe he gets a very little payment for it, monthly or whatever, but sarqufli is very important. This is not something that existed at that time. At that time, maybe the maximum was perhaps a person who had shop was renting the shop. But to say that I have right over this shop and you only own the property but another person has the right of use, that's new. هي عبارة عن أخذ المالك من المستأجر مقدارا من المال ليكون له حق إيجار العين إلى أي شخص شاء في أي مدة أراد. He takes some money from the tenant, but tenant then has right. He can use it, he can rent it to another person. Okay, this is the first area that we may refer to urf to understand that something is permissible or something is valid as a taklif or as a hukm waz'i depends on two conditions. One is that must not be against any Islamic ruling. Secondly, this conduct must be connected to the time of Ma'asum. The second area that we discuss about referring to urf is tabyinul mafahim. There are concepts, there are terms that are used in Quran, in Hadith, in religious texts, and in order to understand Islamic ruling, you have to have clear understanding of these concepts. If these concepts are the concepts that are used by people, then you refer to people to understand the meaning. If these concepts are coined by religion, then you have to refer to religion to get it. Sometimes Islam coined new terms. You remember in discussion about Sahih wa A'am, we had this discussion. Some of the terminology, maybe it's coined by Islam. Some of the terminology is new. Pardon? Haqiqa Shari'ah. Some no, it's not new. For example, dua. Dua is not new. But salat in this sense is new. Zakat is new. إذا وقع البيع والإجارة وما شابههما موضوعا للحكم الشرعي. If something like selling, renting, hiring becomes mawzu, subject for a religious ruling, ثم شك في مدخلية الشيء, then there is a doubt whether in realization, materialization of this, there is a condition or not. For example, bay, does it need to be with uttering bi'tu, ishtaraitu, siqa, the formula? Should we say it or not? Or for example, is there some obstacle for it or not? Here, as long as this is accepted by Orf as bay, it's valid. Because Shari didn't create bay. Bay is something which was there before. They had this term, and Shari used that term. Yes, Shari can regulate it, can bring conditions, but if you don't know, if it's not proved that Shari has made any changes, you follow Orf. ثم شك في مدخلية الشيء. There is a doubt whether something is bearing on that. Like it has to be selling with formula. Or if you have doubt whether something is an obstacle in materialization of this concept. فالصدق العرفي دليل على أنه هو الموضوع عند الشارع. Just the fact that according to Orf, this concept applies here. Sidq means it applies here, it's valid here, it's true here. It's enough. Because we don't have any evidence to say that there is something extra needed. الصدق العرفي دليل على أنه هو الموضوع عند الشرع إذ لو كان المعتبر غير البيع بمعناه العرفي, because if what was valid, what was needed was different from what people understand from bay, Shari must have mentioned it. The fact that Shari didn't say anything extra means he relied on people's understanding. إذ لو كان المعتبر غير البيع بمعناه العرفي لما صح من الشارع إحماله. It was not okay, it was not possible, it was not right for Shari not to mention it, to ignore it. مع تبادر غيره. If something else was understood from the text and Shari didn't want that, he should have mentioned, I mean something else. وكمال اهتمامه. We know that Shari has complete attention and care. Even Shari makes mustahabbat very clear. He mentions mustahabbat's details, makruhat. So then how it comes that if something was necessary, Shari didn't mention? إذ يكون تركه إغراء بالجهل. If Shari meant something else and he didn't mention it, this means that na'uzu billah, he is misleading, he's taking people towards ignorance, misguiding people. Ighra, what does it mean? Ighra means to push people, to misguide them. وَهُوَ لَا يَجُوزُ عَلَيْهِ عَقْلًا. And this is rationally impossible that Shari misguides people. Second, لَوْ افْتَرَضْنَا الْإِجْمَالِ. Sometimes, perhaps, there is ijmal. You are not sure about something, a concept. Like what? Ghabn. You know ghabn?
Deception?
No.
No, I think when you're buying something, then
Deception is related, but
Correct price. Overcharging.
maghboon is the one who is losing. Ghabn is a kind of loss because of not knowing.
and works on the muamalat.
Yes. So, for example, you buy a car and you don't know that engine was broken. This is ghabn.
The seller doesn't tell you the truth.
Yes. We have this beautiful hadith from Amirul Mu'minin salam that whoever whose 2 successive days are the same, he is maghboon. Al-Maghbun man tasawa yawma. Today is Wednesday. If Wednesday is the same as Tuesday, we are losing.
How is it if Wednesday is worse than Tuesday? That's not the way.
Yes. Yeah. So this is very important hadith. So ghabn means losing because of not knowing the details, the condition of the mu'amala. Okay. If we have some ambiguity about this ghabn or aib, we don't know what is the meaning of aib. Aib means deficiency. We refer to urf. يحال في صدقهما إلى العرف. It will be returned to urf. محقق اردبیلی رحمت الله. محقق اردبیلی or مقدس اردبیلی, you know, was one of our great ulama, and he has many books or several books. One is in fiqh called Majma' al-Fa'idah wal-Burhan. He's quoting from that. But he has also Zubdatul Bayan, which is tafsir of Ayatul Ahkam. You know, Ayatul Ahkam in the Quran. Muhaqaddas Ardabili rahmatullah alayhi says, قَدْ تَقَرَّرَ فِي الشَّارْعِ أَنَّ مَا لَمْ يَثْبُتْ لَهُ الْوَضْعُ الشَّرْعِي يُحَالُ إِلَى الْعُرْفِ. He says, this is an established idea in religion, in Sharia, that anything for which we don't have religious designation, religious meaning, we refer it to the urf. جريان على العادة المعهودة. This is in compliance with a very well-known habit that people are returned or sent or referred to their urf. So whenever you have doubt, and this is not something that Islamically is coined, you refer to urf. What do urf understand by this? جيم لو افترضنا الإجمال في حد الغناء. We know, for example, غنا is haram. But what is غنا? What type of music or singing? If Shari has not explained or you have doubt, you refer to urf. Do urf call this غنا or not? For example, you don't know whether tarji' is a condition or not. You know tarji'? When they sing, they,
Move the tongue in the throat.
No. They don't utter something. They,
They hum, like the humming.
circulate it in their throat.
Opera.
No, it's not.
I am not familiar with technical terms.
Yeah, there's a moving the tongue in the throat.
Ah.
To make the noise.
Yes. So it means that, sometimes, for example, someone says, ah, sometimes they say ah in 1 minute.
Yeah.
And sometimes they repeat,
The stretching.
pardon?
When they
Stretch
stretch
and
the
twist
sound.
and
Yeah, like that.
In different tones.
So, is this needed? Is this a condition to be haram or not? If urf is the one who has coined this term, we refer to urf. Or tarab, mutrab. There are lots of discussion about what is mutrab. So some ulama say something that makes you feel very sad or very happy. Something that makes you feel light, in the sense that somehow you lose your dignity or honor. You know, you become
Enjoy emotion.
you become like a
Intoxicant.
as if you know you are like a, for example, a piece of, for example, you know, wood that wind is moving. You lose your control and firmness.
Intoxicating.
Yeah, that's that's another way of talking it. But mutrib is something that when you hear, you lose your dignity. You want to dance, for example. You want to, you know, sing, and you know. And some people said even this can be something which is very sad, making you very sad. That is also possible. It doesn't need to be very happy. So there are lots of discussion. So if this ghana is something that is known to Urf and Shara has not brought its own definition, then we refer to Urf. Of course, to the Urf of that time. What people of that time understood from this concept. And this is why it's very important that we use old dictionaries. You know, if there is a chance that over time the meaning has changed, we have to use old dictionaries so that we make sure that the same concept that was used at that time is used today. Yes.
The music, the singing, do we have to, can we use both, going back to the Masul, to decide which one is or which one isn't?
We are not talking about permissibility or impermissibility. Permissibility or impermissibility, we take it from Sharia. But for example, Sharia has said al-ghina'u haram. What is ghina?
Which one?
The description of ghina, if it is not given by Sharia, so we have to refer to Urf. What do Arab people understand from ghana? But if there is a chance that today we understand different from past, we have to refer to old texts, old dictionaries to identify the meaning of ghana.
And some of the, form of dinner has been changed now completely. New,
Yeah.
and which is not in the past. How are we going to go for that?
The concept is important. Some say any singing which is coming with tarjih and itrab is haram. Some say even tarjih is not needed. Itrab is enough to make it haram. Imam Khomeini had the idea that, and some other maraja today have the idea that any singing or any music which is suitable for sinful gatherings.
Gathering of amusements or
Yeah, not in a sinful gathering.
Like pops, disco.
Yeah, something that make people forget, their religion, forget God, forget seriousness of life. Yeah. So there are different understandings, but whatever is your interpretation, it has to be based on the way this term was understood at that time. You cannot, bring your own interpretation. You have to have evidence that this is what was understood at that time.
Sorry, I don't understand tarab.
Tarab, as I said, it's a kind of feeling very light that is normally when they make you very happy or very emotional.
As a result of music feeling like that.
Yeah. For example, you are sitting, but this music is so. You want to, move and do something or dance.
Make you dance.
inhibition. They say it sort of affects you, lowers your inhibitions. Because often people do ask, how do you understand it now? So maybe if you can explain it later, what's your understanding, how we should understand it.
I think what, for example, Imam Khomeini says is a good way of distinguishing. Because what is important is in the end, is this singing or music something that is suitable for a meeting of, for example, religious people, or it is something that people who are not religious don't practice, they do it. Something that, for example, people that on the side of it also drink to it, or mix with na-mahram do it, So what type of, music or singing is this? Yes.
Especially in our culture, Pakistani culture, we have got this big problem that they use these mud or sometime they use qasaid
Yes.
to praise Masumeen, but they use this, the way of songs, like filmatic songs, not qawwali, it's more than that. So they use the straight song, filmatic songs, which are definitely from Ghina. What is the ruling for that? And the mahfil may be in the Imam Barga, and people they're doing this garb.
Uh,
I believe these days the
Faqih gives you the rule. You have to apply it.
Ama de Darab, which is the Darab, which you guide often you should play the Zanzibar, the Arabs used to play it.
Yeah.
Is it haram? The Darab music.
I don't comment on any case. I'm just giving you.
You have to comment, Shukla. You are our teacher.
No.
Your guide.
No.
So what would
Because
you
even if I say, of course, I am as a kind of, I'm not. I'm not saying I am mujtahid, but I'm saying even mujtahid, because here we are studying ijtihad. Even mujtahid does not have the responsibility of commenting on each music or each song. Yeah? Like for example, is this butcher halal or not? This is not the job of mujtahid. Mujtahid gives you the ruling, you have to apply. Okay? Unless there is something that is, for example, very important, like for example, beginning of the months of Ramadan, these are the cases that faqih may get into it. But even here, faqih, for example, if you have seen the moon and faqih has not seen it, if you have seen it, then you don't need to ask faqih. Okay? So, masadiq, instances are to be distinguished and decided by mukallaf himself or herself. But of course, sometimes it's very complicated. Mukallaf may not understand, can bring that case to faqih and get his opinion. In any case, we are not discussing now ghina. That needs lots of discussion. We are just mentioning this as an example for something else. The third area is tashkhisul masadiq. The previous one was to understand the concept. This is about masadiq. For example, sometimes religion and Sharia has taken mafahim, some concepts, and used them as subject for ruling. Mawzu for hukm. And then we may be in doubt whether this case, this instance, is an instance for that mafhum or not. For example, in your watan, your home, your salat is complete. Watan. But what is watan? If I, for example, I am not born here and I have purchased a house here, is this my watan? Or for example, I have been here for 6 months, is it my watan or not? So these are issues that if we don't have guidance from hadith and Quran, we have to refer to what people understand from watan. Sometimes Shara himself says, this is what I mean by watan. Sometimes He just leaves us and asks us to use the public opinion. كالوطن والسعيد سعيد فتيمموا صعيدا طيبا يعني وجه الأرض, something which is an earthly material. So, for example, is marble also included or not? You refer to urf. Or, for example, about minerals, about a land which is not used. It's arz mawat means a land which is not used. Anything like this, if we don't know whether this instance is an instance for that concept, which is used as a subject in religious ruling, we may refer to urf. If that is a concept which is not coined by Sharia. Another thing is that sometimes we use not general public opinion. We use public opinion, but public opinion of a certain place. For example, this is very important. If two people in London have made a contract, sometimes it's not clear what they meant by this. We have to refer to the urf of London. Maybe urf of London is different from urf of Manchester. Okay, so it's not that urf of any English speaking, people. It's urf khas. إن لكل قوم وبلد أعرافا خاصة بهم. Every nation, every people of cities, for example, they may have their own opinion, and they act they do transactions according to that. So this can create a kind of evidence that when we say something, we mean according to our own city. For example, someone says, I do this work for you, you give me 10 kilo meat. 10 kilograms meat as my, wages. Does meat mean red meat only, or it can be white meat as well? So here we have to refer to urf. Okay? Because, maybe white meat is cheaper, for example. Or a person has made will in his wasiya, in his will, he says, this is going to be used for my walad. Is this walad means boy only, or can be boy and girl, son and daughter? It has to be understood according to what the people of that place understand. Or, in the case of riba, riba comes in something which is sold by kale or wazn or ad. Sometimes by counting, sometimes by weighing, sometimes by measure. For example, they have some cups or some bowls, they say, for example, 10 times this cup, for example. If something is purchased or sold by kale or wazn or adad, then you cannot take instead of that something from the same type which is more. So you cannot say, for example, 10 kilograms of rice and get instead 11 kilograms of rice. Okay?
That will be riba.
That will be riba. But whether this is to be sold by kale or wazn or ad or in another way, it's according to the urf of that place. What is normal in the market for them? Do they buy it, for example, by counting? Do they buy it by weighing? Do they buy it, for example?
For example, here they do by percentage. That's how.
Pounds and stones.
We have to find out what is. So, he says, إذا اختلفت البلدان في بيع شيء بالكيل أو الوزن أو بالعد فالمتبع هو عرف الرائج في بلد البيع. What is to be followed is the urf of that land. محقق اردبیلی رحمة الله علیه says كل ما لم يثبت فيه الكيل ولا الوزن ولا عدمهما. If anything that is not established, that was sold by scale, like measure, or weighing, or its opposite, means we don't know was sold with this, and we don't know it was not sold with this. We are in doubt. Hukmuhu hukmul buldan. So, if you know in the time of Rasulullah was sold with kale or with vaz, we follow that. Otherwise, no. Is it clear? فَإِنَ اتَّفَقَ الْبُلْدَانِ. If it is not known what was the case in the time of Rasulullah, and all places are the same, all lands, all countries are the same, okay, so we don't have any problem. We follow what is common today. إِنْ اخْتَلَفَ. If cities or countries change, فَفِي بَلَدِ الْكَيْلِ أَوِ الْوَزْنِ. In those countries, in those lands, that they use kale or wazn for selling or buying this, it becomes riba, and you cannot get more. But if in another land they don't use kale and wazn, for example, they do it another way, then he says it's not riba. Kale is measurement, like for example, you say 1 cup, or 1 qintar, for example,
Like measuring the clothes as well.
Something for measuring. Anyway, the main issue is this, that when something, of course, even this might be something that people may not agree that we have to refer to the time of the Prophet. But he says, if the time of Prophet was kale and waz, today we have to follow it. If it was not known, then if all people agree today, we follow it. If not, what is in your own place, the place that aqd is taking place. Maybe someone says that even if at that time was with kale and waz, and today is not with kale and waz in any place, we should follow the urf of today. But again, this is something that mujtahid can decide. So, the summary is that urf as such is not hujjah. But when a concept is used in a religious ruling, and that concept is not a concept which is coined by religion, is taken from urf for understanding the scope of that concept or instances, you can refer to urf. The other thing is that if something is done by people today, and we know that the same thing continuously was being done in ages up to the time of Ma'asum, and Ma'asum didn't stop although he was seeing and watching, then that is also permissible. So this is the summary of this discussion. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin.